Welcome to Dark Sorcery. I'm Alfredo Martinez, and I have with me Gazelam Ale. Gazelam, good to have you back on.
Hello, hey Alfredo. Hello, Dark Sorcery.
It's good to have you on. And so today we're going to be speaking a little bit on divination. And speaking of divination, sometimes a lot of people like to meditate before they do divination. How do you go about preparing for it?
Well, for me, like all magical tools, it's more of a creative device and things like that. Um, I kind of I like to look at universal symbols, not to put a whole lot onto it. For me, it's just really a lot more for the enjoyment of things and stuff. When you look at like card readings and things like that. Um, Divination as an actual tool in card reading wasn't really even practiced until probably like the 1700s or the 18th century or so. And so it's really a fairly new thing. It's not something that traces back to like the catacombs of Egypt, like Count de Gebelin and Atea and different people would attribute it to. In fact, I have a Atea deck here, which is one of the very first card decks that was used for divination purposes only, and this traces back to the middle to the late 1800s. But you could see that they've put some Egyptian type symbolism and stuff in here, but
Yeah.
it's not. Here's the moon card. It's in fact they even call this the tarot of the Egyptians, but really it's way more Masonic than Freemasonry. I mean, these are a bunch of white dudes and stuff, It's not. It's hard to imagine like this guy being an Egyptian. But
Right.
in the 1800s, that was their understanding of that type of thing. Was it
Looks
was
very European in influence.
Yeah, really European and Freemasonic. This deck
Yeah.
actually is an initiatory deck where it's a can actually go through it as an initiation of sorts. But
Now, I mean, I would say that the card reading is relatively recent. What do you think about some people saying that the origins of the tarot deck are from ancient Egypt and Thoth had written it down and the imagery was influenced back then with
yeah,
that kind of folklore. What's your opinion on that?
it's similar to what they call speculative Freemasonry. And what that is that they're it's they're fantastical ideas. I mean, there's probably people that say they can, well, for Mormons, for instance, a lot of people trace Freemasonry back to Solomon and the Temple of Solomon,
Mm.
but it's also a very modern type of thing. Mormons will trace the endowment and those rituals all the way back to Adam. And so,
Really? That's a pretty big statement.
yeah, it's a pretty big statement. And Freemasonry traces all the way back to Satan and Cain and people um,
Mm.
making dark magic and black magic and things like that. So, but it's interesting. Back to the card thing. There were these early cards that were called coffee ground cards, and they were actually based off of coffee ground divination. To where after you drink your cup of coffee, the coffee grounds would form on the inside of the cup and just make different patterns and things. And so using like pareidolia or or let's say you see the coffee makes some mounds, it looks like mountains, or the coffee grounds look like a clove. or a rose or something like that. You know, it's like seeing
Yeah.
pictures in the pictures in the clouds. And so what they one of the earliest Lenormands that they found, these decks are called Lenormand, but they were actually just named after a famous fortune teller,
Right.
and were originally, like tarot, originally a game and didn't have anything to do with divination. But they have been able to trace these coffee grounds as where they were trying to put them into pictorial form. What's, let's say, 40 of the most common images that are found in coffee grounds.
Mm.
Does that make sense?
It makes sense.
And it was also a storytelling device where the earliest decks were actual, even historical figures like the Sforza decks and things like that, were to commemorate weddings and to have family history and things like that were also programmed into it, or like designed into it. So it's pretty
Mm.
interesting.
Well, speaking of cartomancy, last time you showed a bit about the Mormon endowment tarot deck. Do you have that laying around?
Um, I do have the little stack of them here. I also have my Triumph's Pips Parade tarot, which are paintings I did. There were 2.5 by 3 foot paintings I did in the late '90s, and then turned it into a full deck.
Oh,
And
sweet.
it's pretty cool because I put jokers in there, and it has the 22 major arcana plus a 23rd chaos card.
I like that.
But I did all my majors, so there's the Wheel of Fortune.
Yeah.
But I used the French suits, so when you get down to the minors, it becomes a traditional card deck. So it can be used for divination, but also for gameplay.
Now you mentioned the French. Did the Marseille deck have any influence on that in particular?
Yeah, so the Marseille, the originally, it has what are called the Italian pips, which would be pentacles, swords, or I mean coins,
Right.
swords, wands, and cups. And then the French changed those into cups or hearts and changed them into the French pips. But originally, the Marseille uses Italian pips, even though it's a French deck.
Mm.
And so the evolution comes later on to where here's an interesting cartomancy deck where they're using more of the Lenormand type symbols. Like here's a fox, and so that
Mm.
means like cunningness, or being sneaky,
Mm.
or maybe an enemy or something like that. But
Right.
you can see how they put the drew the pictures in and snuck them into the with the different pips and things like that. But
That's
I don't
unique.
know. I don't know what you wanted to look at with the Mormon endowment. I guess,
Well, just more of the imagery and what some of the imagery means and how it relates to the Mormon Church, some of the mannerisms. You said
yeah.
there was some mutilation involved with some of them.
So this is the Master Mahon, and there's a lot of speculation that that's Joseph Smith using code words for Master Mason. But Master Mahon is the character, which is when Lucifer made the pact with Cain to murder for gain. And when he showed him the secret tokens, he says, "Now surely you are Master Mahon, for you are the keeper of this great secret, the keeper of the secret."
And that's the wording that it uses in the Book of Mormon, Mahon.
Yeah, it's Mahon. It's actually in the Pearl of Great Price.
Mm.
Is the name of a book. So
Well, do a lot of LDS people tend to agree with you in your interpretation of that? Maybe um, some hint at Saint Mason or
yeah, I mean,
euphemism for Mason.
I saw a recent chart of the plan of salvation, which that after you die, which kingdom you go to. So
Right.
they have the top heaven is the celestial kingdom, and there's this path to outer darkness. And they would always say that becoming a son of perdition or denying the Holy Ghost is what makes you will take you to outer darkness. And we were told in primary and stuff, even Hitler probably didn't go to outer darkness because he didn't deny the Holy Ghost. But this map at the bottom of the path, it says like the things that will take you to outer darkness, and it says like whoremongering, and one of the things was sorcery. I was like, holy crap,
Oh wow.
sorcery. Yeah, because I guess it makes you a son of perdition.
Yeah.
And so, but here's the outer darkness card. So their concept of Mormons don't have a hell, they have outer darkness, which is just complete blackness for time and all eternity.
Now I remember speaking with a Mormon, and they said that oh hell is, you know, this is hell, earth is hell. I remember him telling me that. Is that the consensus among the LDS population?
I think the idea is that the earth is kind of a purgatory type of state.
Right.
And so that's one of the ways they kind of explain ghosts and spirits and things like that, is that this isn't necessarily doctrinal, but that um, the spirit world and the our earthly world, are the same place, kind of superimposed on top of each other type of
Right.
thing. And so I wouldn't say it was really hell, but they say the terrestrial world, which would be like the lower kingdoms are closest to what the earth is like. And earth is in such a fallen state that even the lowest kingdom of heaven would, they say that you would kill yourself to get there, because it's so much, their lowest kingdom is so much better than even where we're at. So that's probably where those kind of ideas come from and stuff like that.
Mhm.
um I mean, we talked about it last time, but you're
Yeah.
probably mostly interested in like these different tokens.
Okay, now what's the explanation for the mannerism in this one here?
Yeah, so the grip is the thumb over the knuckle, and that's the exact same as the Blue Lodge Freemasonry, which are the three different grips.
Right.
But then this one, the actual sign, is that you would suffer your life to be taken by slitting your throat if you were to ever reveal any of these things. So I made
Any
these
of
my elementals, where the throat is water.
uh
Um, we talked last time about this is really esoteric. There's fundamentalist groups that have this penalty, but it's genital mutilation. This is to have your heart torn out of your chest. And I
mhm.
think there was a burning involved. And so that's where the fire element.
Now are these
Oh, actually, that was wrong. This is the heart. The
okay.
heart, that your heart will be pecked by the fowls of the air. And then this is that your bowels will be opened up and torn out.
No, are these different mutilations that are to be done in case any initiate reveals the secrets to the uninitiated? Or is it
Yes,
something else? Mm.
yes. And the grips are a little bit different. So this grip goes away slightly from Freemasonry, where this is actually represents the nails of the palms of the sun, and the name of this token is the sun,
Mhm.
which represents the Christ having the nails in his palms. But there was this is a secret thing in Mormonism, is that he slipped off the cross because the nails in the palms will just tear right through your palms. And so what they ended up doing is what's called the sure sign,
It's called the what? Say that again.
where sure sign, or the
Okay.
true sign of the nail, which is put through the wrist. And so Mormons believe that Christ was crucified first through the palms and then through the wrist. And the nail went through the wrist so he wouldn't slip off the cross, put the mark in the sure place. And so that's their very topmost secret grip.
Hmm.
And so Christ won't slip.
You had
So
mentioned there was also demonic sigils on some of these cards too.
yeah, I've been working with down here in the corner. These are both these copper plates that I did a facsimile on, and then they were found in Frederick G. Williams wrote them down in the Kirtland Temple. But these sigils are interesting on this corner. This one over here represents um, Samal Jehovah, or Jehovah Samal,
Hmm.
Samael, and this one is Elder Lilith. And so we have the um, Elder Lilith, which is one of Adam's wives, because Adam was also polygamist and had multiple wives, as well as Jesus Christ.
Really?
So yeah, it's
Um,
pretty interesting stuff.
it is interesting. It is. Now,
Secret combinations.
are those who are those presidents of the LDS Church or former presidents of the LDS Church at the bottom? Who are
Yeah,
those?
this is Hinckley making a secret pact with George W. Bush.
George W. Bush.
But there are pictures of them, of Bush. I don't know if he's just clowning them, but there I've seen photographs of President Bush giving like President Monson the sure sign of the nail and things like that. And he was part of Skull and Bones. And so I'm sure
Monson was, right?
no W.
I know W. Bush was, but I was just going
Yeah.
Monson. Yeah.
So I think he's just clowning him. He knows some of these secret tokens, and he's just either that or that it really is a true pack or something. I don't know.
Well, now for the viewers who don't know, explain to them who Monson is, President Monson.
President Monson. So right now, Russell M. Nelson, we call him Rusty or the Rustyites, is the president of the Mormon or the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. President Monson was the president just before this newest guy. And then just before him was Hinckley, who was in this. So that's how far back Hinckley was the current president when I created this deck.
Yeah, I remember growing up when I was in school. I think Hinckley was the guy who was in office.
Yeah, he was probably the main dude. So for me, it was Kimball, and they've had a bunch of presidents. Kimball was probably my last
Uh,
president because I left, in my around 18, 19
right,
years old.
right. Now in uh in the Book of Mormon, it speaks of Joseph Smith using a seer stone to interpret the plates, if I'm right. Is that correct?
Yes, and
Okay,
that's an
so
interesting stone because my family, um, I have these cousins that lived at the same time as Joseph Smith, named the Chase family, and Sally Chase was a scryer that had a green stone that Joseph Smith always had known about, and so he traveled quite a distance to track her down and look into this green stone so he could find his seer stone, which was supposedly a white stone that was under a tree. It's a big long story. But essentially, it's weird because this white stone, I think, is more kind of a mythical holy grail philosopher's stone type of mythology. But there's this brown stone that was found in a well that they were treasure digging. They said they were digging a well, but they're treasure digging, and they find this little brown kind of stone that looks kind of the size of a quail egg.
mm,
And when Willard Chase, my cousin, finds it, and Joseph's like, "Whoa, let me look at that." were like, this is a curious stone. And so Joseph asked him if he could borrow it. And he's like, well, I really like it, but I'll let you borrow it if you want. So he borrowed it and starts translating the Book of Mormon using the stone. Willard gets the stone back. 115 pages are lost, 116 pages are lost, and all this stuff while they're translating the Book of Mormon. And it comes down to where Willard gets the stone back, and they can't translate the Book of Mormon. So Joseph sends his brother Hiram over, and they say, we can't commence with translating the book unless we have this seer stone. Can we please get it back to you and get it back from you and borrow it? And they let him borrow it. And then the Smiths never gave that stone back. And to this day, it's in the vaults of the church, in their vaults. But it's a weird stone because it's this banded hematite jasper stuff.
Mm.
And the reason it's curious, and people say, oh, it's just a rock, it's just a rock. It isn't just a rock. What they found is it was actually a gizzard stone that a dinosaur had used. So dinosaurs, like birds, will swallow stones to help digest food. And
Right.
so it looks like it's been tumbled in a river or something, but the reason it's all smooth and round like that is because it was inside a dinosaur at one point.
Yeah, and anyone who's done some you know little bit of archaeology of their own or just going around, in the state of Utah knows that, there are stones, I guess you could say, quote unquote, dinosaur stones, laying around. I mean, I've used my dowsing rods going around out in the wilderness and found, stones with dinosaur skin on them, or maybe has a dinosaur egg in it.
Oh
Uh,
yeah, there's this stuff called um, coprolite that's really cool too, and essentially it's just dino shit, petrified dino poop.
have you been using that for any
Yeah,
divination purpose?
I find some weird stuff with that. Here, let me
Yeah,
show you something.
yeah.
I actually found this on the Bonneville Shoreline Trail right below Ensign Peak. It's an actual, it's a dinosaur egg.
Sweet.
You can even see, it's hard to get up close on this, but you can actually see the shell around the thing. I don't know if it's like a shark
Uh-huh.
egg or something because it
Right.
was all water, but you could see it's like perfectly round and you could see the shell. If you could see it in real life, you'd just be like,
Yeah.
holy crap.
I can take a look at it now. Especially when you go on the lands that are forbidden to the public and you just start looking there, you'll see these rocks laying around.
So that seer stone that was found by Joseph Smith and Willard Chase was actually back east. But yeah, it's pretty interesting.
Mm, okay. Now, what would you say are some other divination methods, common divination methods that you would say that the LDS Church tends to use or has a history of using?
Yeah, outside of scrying with seer stones, this one's the one I've been using with for my Mormon demonic stuff, and it's pretty cool. It's actually rainbow obsidian, and the
Mm.
light's not the
It's
best in here,
beautiful.
but
I mean,
there's a
it looks
rainbow in there.
beautiful from your camera's point of view.
But and I do. This is an example. Here's the Jehovah Samael and the sigils. So these are the, yeah, these ones aren't finished. Let's see. Yeah, I haven't finished them out yet, but I'm still working on them.
I like the
This is
artwork.
for my Mormon grimoire.
Uh,
But back to your question, probably the rod of Aaron.
I've heard of that. I've heard of that. Okay, so you got some dowsing rods there. Sweet.
So what they would use more in Mormonism is actually just a cane, and you'd hold the cane, and then when it would dip or nod, then that's how you knew
Now,
what
is the rod of Aaron? Is that something that's mentioned in their scripture or their folklore, or let's say
yeah,
the pearl of great price?
yeah, originally in the Book of Mormon, oh, what did it say? They changed it to the rod of Aaron, but it said the rod of nature originally. And so the original translation called it, you will, it says that, who was it that he's working with? Martin Harris, maybe? I can't remember. But he told him that he would be gifted in using the rod of nature, and then they changed it to the rod of Aaron. But if you
Mm,
go to the Daughter of the Pioneer Museum in Salt Lake, they have an entire cabinet just full of Mormon canes from early Mormonism and stuff. This one, my friend gave me. Um, it's an antique of some sort. I don't know.
sweet. It looks
That's pretty
supposed to be a
cool.
serpent. Well, it looks like.
Yeah, it's weird. I put this knobby end on it, but it totally looks like a toad head, I think. It's just a knot.
Mm.
And I don't know if this had like an extension on it. So this would work really good for either wrapping somebody upside the head or, or doing some divination with it.
Yeah. Now I know that in the Bible it speaks a lot of casting lots. Do the Mormons tend to do that?
I know there was a voting system and things in the early days where this is similar to Freemasonry too, where when you get blackballed and things like that, where they'll have like a bunch of marbles and that's how they vote. And then whoever gets the black ball is like the short stick or something like that. So I don't know if that would be kind of a casting lot, but I think in those early minutes and stuff, they had different ways of doing things. That might be speculation mostly, but
Now, would you say there is any spiritual practices that are done, like let's say in the Mormon temple, some divination practices or practices related to divination in the Mormon temple that are not seen by the outside public?
I mean they have a prayer circle and everything. I think the biggest thing with that, and it's not related as much to divination and things, but the temple to this day, and the endowment's been overhauled again recently. Um, they've pretty much turned it into a slideshow film presentation and taken out anything where there's actual physical. Pretty much. I mean, towards the end, you finally do have to physically be involved with the initiation, but it essentially is necromancy. Period. Everything you're doing in there, if it's not for your own endowment, you're a surrogate for a dead person. That goes from baptism all the way up to um, receiving your endowments. That's why they keep going back, is once you have done your own endowment, the reason you go back is to do it for dead people.
Yeah, I remember people telling me that they baptize for the dead. You go into detail a little more about that.
Yeah, I did that back in the 80s as a teenager in Washington, D.C. I really believed I'd be in there. And the whole time I was there, I was looking for the spirits and for ghosts to be walking around. I guess it would be a form of possession if you're a surrogate, because it's interesting because you don't get dunked once, you get dunked multiple times.
Mm.
Um, that be baptized in the name of such and such who is dead, and then it's full immersion, and then back up, and then again, full immersion, back up again, and do it probably 20 times or something. And then the next kid gets in there and goes through it, and then there's a confirmation, and so you go through it all over again with laying of hands where you're confirmed, that upon you.
Yeah.
And the most recent thing too, which is where that they're really putting an emphasis that you are Adam and Eve. When you're going through the endowment, you represent Adam or Eve. You are Adam or Eve. And so there's just this real kind of reverse possession in a sense too, or like you're Adam and Eve, and then these dead people. I don't know.
Yeah,
It's interesting.
I've noticed that they have a fascination, such fascination and focus on the dead.
Yeah, because they think that's the only way that you'll be saved, and anyone that died before the restoration never knew about it, and so it's to save them so that they aren't damned forever, you know.
Mm. Now, do you prefer to use divination more by yourself, or do you like to use a deity when divining sometimes?
Oh, I've really switched up a lot from my younger days and stuff. We talked about it a little bit last time, but I was really into Macumba and into voodoo and a lot of Afro-Caribbean things. I used to have a plate of Ifa, which you use cornery shells,
Right.
and then you throw them, and if they land head up or right side up, and their position of where they land on the plate, and things are all divinatory, and Ifa is looked at directly as a spirit of divination, and so you're working with that spirit directly. Or when I used to work with Olegwa or Legba, Papa Legba, Ishu, the Lord of the Crossroads, and things like that. But yeah, now I just do it for myself for fun. There's a
Mm,
creative device to help from if I might if I might be having like a writer's block of some sort or a creative block. It can help put me in a certain direction or something, you know.
mm, okay. Uh, well, it's been a nice conversation. Anything that you want to say or plug before we go ahead and end this video?
Um, I mean my Order of Amen site on Etsy. It's Etsy shop Order of Amen. That's AWMAN. I have these tarot decks here. There is still one Mormon endowment deck available, but it's really expensive because it's the last one. There are ones floating around. Someone bought a whole bunch of them from me outright, but the artwork is controversial, and I've heard that they've been taking a lot of the cards out and selling them for a discounted price. So I'd just be really wary if it's not for me, if you're buying them
Do
on
you
Etsy or
plan
something.
on putting those in print again anytime soon?
No. No, I don't. But I know you were talking to me about it. I might be able to um, set you up with the right connection to get a hold of one. But um,
Yeah,
I've just there's a lot of baggage that goes along with them because of nudity and different things, and just
I
because
guess the
the
go ahead.
subject matter itself, you know, being the
Right.
endowment is a very taboo subject in its own
I
right.
guess it's if it's meant to be in your hands, it'll just end up in your hands. I guess that's what it comes down to.
Yeah, like most things, I guess.
Yeah.
But I do still have these. They come in three sizes, which is really cool. Um, the largest, and the mini deck here are 20, 23 major arcana, so they're only major arcana. And then my Pips Parade is like 90 something cards. And this one's really cool because it has, you know, you can use it as a regular, you could play poker, any kind of game you want really with this
That's cool.
one right here. So yeah. Oh, and I do have some of my Mormon magic kits on there that have the dowsing rods, a dried toad, a seer stone, and it's a whole kit package that is a Mormon magic kit.
That's cool.
So it's worth at least checking out and looking, and maybe giving a like or something.
Yeah. In fact, to everybody who's watching, I'm gonna put the links below this video. So if you're interested, go ahead and hit the links below the video, because then just make sure you send me the link and I'll post it up so people can have access to your Etsy and your content.
Yeah,
And
that's
also check
fantastic.
out his TikTok page. He's got some interesting stuff on his TikTok page, his Instagram. So yeah.
Yeah, way cool.
Hmm. And well, if nothing else, thanks for watching, and like and subscribe to Dark Sorcery.
Yeah, great talking to you again. See ya.
Likewise.